Snail sampling. It sounds easy enough, but unless you know what you're looking for and where to find them, it can be challenging. First, let's take a look at some aquatic snails so you know what to look for. Snails in Missouri are relatively small, but come in different shapes. Some are dome-shaped, some are coiled flat, some spiral to the left, and some spiral to the right. Next, let's explore habitats and the methods to collect snails.
In a stream this size and even smaller, a site that you might pick snails from, you want to cover about anywhere from 50 to 100 to 150 yards. Just try to look for different little pieces of habitat, different little cool things that you might find, and sample from all of those. Try to cover as much ground as you possibly can. Our site here is about 200 yards upstream of a road crossing, and that's a good idea. Sometimes the habitat at road crossings is not all that great, and so just maybe get in and go upstream a little bit, go around the bend, and look for something that looks more natural than what a county road crossing might look like. Under undercut banks, there's little root wads that hang down, and I like to get in there with my dip net and just kind of disturb them a little bit. It's a good place to find fish, but also insects, sometimes some snails hanging out in there. Let's see if we found something. And when I'm done looking at this stuff, I always like to throw it back in the stream. Rocks too, just because it'll continue making good habitat for insects, snails, macroinvertebrates, and fish. Oh, it looks like we got one, luckily. Right there. There's just a group of leaves in the water. I like for them to usually be mostly underwater, but this will be fine. But also too, we like for it to be what's called not new fall, so not green leaves. It looks like they've been there for a bit, so they're a bit older. So we're just going to put our net up behind it, and then we'll just put it in there. Try to get all of it. And let's see if we can pick through some stuff here. Nope. And then we got another snail in there. So I also like to look for rocks in the stream, bigger rocks. And we can, if you have a dip net, it's a good idea to put your dip net downstream of it just to catch anybody that might get away. But you don't have to have one. And so we're just going to pull it out of the water. And then we will look it over. Oh, and we have a snail right there attached to it. So I don't need forceps to pull him off. Just going to put him in my hand. There's our snail. All right. So we've got another big rock here, and there's a lot of big rocks around the area. This one caught my eye just because it's got a lot of little, when I pull it up, you'll see there's a lot of little divots and holes in it and everything. Just makes for a lot of different places for different microhabitats. Again, since I have a dip net, I like to keep it just downstream of the rock, so if anybody gets dislodged, I'll catch them. But if you don't, you certainly don't have a dip net on hand, you certainly don't have to have one. Kind of the cool thing about snails. All right, so we're going to pull it out of there. And right away we can see some caddisfly cases on there. And rocks, caddisflies. So here's something kind of cool. We have a caddisfly that actually makes a case that looks like a snail. Caddisflies, for those of you that don't know, they spin silk, and they make these little cases out of rocks and sticks that they carry around with themselves. They're really closely related to caterpillars and moths. So, but this guy, his scientific name is Helicocyke borealis, and he makes this little case. Let me get my forceps right here. I'm going to set my rock down, and he makes this little case that looks like a snail. And kind of the giveaway, under a microscope it's really easy to see, and you can sometimes see the caddisfly inside there, but you'll kind of, as you're looking at it, you'll kind of notice that it's not really smooth, it's really bumpy, and that's because it's thousands of little grains of sand and pebbles that he has glued together that to make his case, and but it looks like a snail. So yeah, you can see on this rock just all the variety of different places where something could live. And so that's why I like to get those. We have a kick net with us today, so we're gonna come out of here and kind of select the area right in front of it, and we're gonna get in here and do the riffle shuffle. So just kind of kick it around. Do some moonwalking and some break dancing. Get these bigger rocks out of there. Okay. All right, ready? Okay, we're gonna lift this up so the bottom stays in. All right, there we go. Now I'll take it over here. And put it down. What do we get? There we go. We did find an empty shell. One of the cool things about snails is that when the animal dies, they leave their shell around, and we still keep track of that. It still tells us what species are known from different parts of the state, and so having just an empty shell is just fine too. So get some ethanol in our vial, and then step back out of the way. There's my little snail. Plop him in there, and this little guy. Okay. Now that you've made your collection and you found some snails, and even if you didn't find some snails, we still want to know about it. The most important thing that you need to give us then is to tell us where you were. And so some of this information you may not have right away, but we can figure it out as long as we've got a few points to go off of. But we want to try to fill this out with as much information as we can. So we are in Miller County, and the location is Saline Creek, and we're about 200 yards upstream of, what's the road again? Square Line Road. And now we are at Saline Valley Conservation Area, so we're going to write that on there as well. At Saline Valley Conservation Area. Okay. All right. And so now, using our cell phone, we've got our coordinates. So we're going to write down these numbers: 38.285011 minus 92.44083. And then, unless you have a county map, you probably won't know the township range and section, and that's fine. But today is the 10th of April, 2024. Collector, we would like to have everybody's names that was involved. Full names if possible. So we're going to write Steve McMurray. And then And then if you have a stream team number, I'm going to write it on there. Just say stream team number 8, and we'll keep track of that as well. Now for methods, we used a variety of methods. So we used a dip net, kick net, and, oops, my handwriting is not that great, hand pick for 30 minutes. And we use a pencil to write these out because ink, sometimes even waterproof ink on waterproof paper will, the alcohol will make it fade. And sometimes after a couple hours, everything that you wrote will be gone. Pencils, however, are permanent. So we like to use pencil for these to make sure that everything stays on the label. And then got our vial here with ethanol in it. You take the label, you just need to fold it over just a little bit to make sure it fits. I like to have it with the county and the stream name facing out, just to make it easier to see. You just kind of roll it up a little bit and pop it in there. There we go, and we're done. Now, in a pinch, if you don't have waterproof paper and you just made some photocopies on a regular copier machine, you've got regular paper, you can secure it to the outside, but before you ship it to us, we would like for you to go ahead and put it onto that waterproof paper, because during shipment sometimes the labels can get dislodged or lost, and then we have a vial of shells or of snails and we don't know who collected or where it was collected from. So now this is ready to ship in.
Now that you know how to collect snails, you'll have more success collecting them in the field. Happy snail collecting!